With Office 365 using Azure Active Directory for all of its authentication services, whether you're using cloud-only users, whether you're using a synchronized service, or whether you're using a federated service, Azure AD is still that authentication provider. You need to go out there and learn a little bit about working with it through PowerShell. There's a lot of things that we can do with PowerShell that we can't even do in the portal. In fact, PowerShell is often considered a superset of functionality. So there are things you can do with PowerShell that you just simply can't do through a GUI. Now in order to work with this, we need to actually go out there, download and install the Azure Active Directory module for PowerShell. This will give us all of the commands, all of the codes that we need in order to be able to actually create users, work with and manage groups, go out there and delete a user if we wanted to, change some properties of a user, things like that, all through a command line interface. If you want to do that, there are some prerequisites that the system needs to have before you actually do that. You do have to have PowerShell itself on the system already, and most, Windows 7 or higher will be fine. You'll have PowerShell, you'll be ready to rock and roll with it. You need to have .NET Framework 3.51 installed on the machine. If you haven't done it yet, you need to go ahead and activate it. You're also going to have to download and install the Microsoft Services Online Sign-In, the Online Services Sign-In Assistant. Okay, so you have to go out there and get that installed as well. If you don't, when you go to install the module, the Azure AD module for PowerShell, you'll simply get an error message saying, I'm sorry, you don't have the current sign-in assistant available. We can't install. Once you've got that installed, you can then go and actually download the Azure Active Directory module for PowerShell. And there's the URL for it. I've actually taken the liberty of already downloading it, and let's go ahead and install it. So I'm just going to go over here and open up my folder, and there it is right there, administration config. I've already met all of my other prerequisites, so let's just click on that and actually install the product. And this is just a quick wizard that will walk you through installing the Azure module for PowerShell. Click on the end user license agreement, accept the terms there, accept the default directory, and install, and this will be a very brief installation. Let that finish real quick. It may take several minutes here as it goes through and finishes. This is usually one of those status bars where we see it just sitting for a while, and then all of a sudden it will actually just advance quickly for us like that, and it'll go through and be ready to go. So now we've got the module installed, so let's start working with it. Let's go ahead and open up a command prompt and actually do a little bit of work with it. What you'll see when you install the Azure Active Directory module for PowerShell is it actually puts an icon right on your desktop. You can go over here, and I highly recommend, if you're going to be doing some changes, especially if you might be working with any certificates or anything like that, that you really need to have that administrative level prompt. So instead of just clicking on it to run it, right-click on it and choose to run it as an administrator. And if you say yes to the UAC there, you'll be able to see, and what you'll be able to notice up here is I have the word administrator right here, right? So I have the word administrator up there in the corner, and it gives me the indicator there that, okay, I have an administrator level prompt so I can make system changes with this, making my life a little bit easier there. If I want to work with this, in order to connect to my subscription, I have to go through a process in actually doing that. So what you actually use is a PowerShell command called connect-msol service. So I'm going to start typing connect-msol, and then without finishing it, I'm just going to hit the tab key. And when I do that, it actually goes through and it does an autocomplete for me. And it goes through and it autocompletes the rest of that command. So it says connect-msol service. That is a typical PowerShell commandlet there in my environment. Now that I've got that, I'll hit the Enter key. When I do, it's actually going to pop up a box and say, hey, in order to connect it to your subscription, I need to know the credentials. I need to have a global administrator account that has the permissions to make changes to that subscription. So we'll go put in our good friend Ethan Kane here. Make sure I don't have any typos there. I think I've got that right. Put in his password and hit the Enter key. It's going and it's trying to authenticate me to my subscription, and quite frankly, we get what I consider to be a less than stellar response. It's very simple. If you get returned back to a command prompt, you now know that you're connected to your subscription. If instead you get the dreaded PowerShell red script showing up, then you know you've entered your password or your username wrong and you're not connected to your subscription. But now we are. Now that we're connected, we have the ability to go out there and actually get some help with PowerShell. If you're not familiar with the commands, you have the ability to go out there in PowerShell and use the get-help command, right? And again, there it is right there, get-help. If you go in and type that, you can then say, well, what command is it you want some help with? right? And you can go through and actually, let's say for now we wanted to create a new user, right? I wanted to go through and create a new Microsoft Online user. So I'm going to say get help with new-MSOL user. And again, we'll let that finish out so you can see it there. Get help new MSOL user there. All right. And when I hit that enter key, it's going to give me a quick listing of all of the different help that we have available. It's going to show me what it does. Here's the command. It shows me exactly what it does. It adds a new user to Azure Active Directory. And remember, although we're an Office 365 tenant, all of the security and authentication is actually processing through Azure Active Directory, right? It shows you the syntax of all of the different switches that you have an option for, a full description of it. We can even see more if we wanted to. If I use that same thing, and I'm just going to hit the up arrow on my keyboard to bring it back up, I can actually say, you know what? I need to see some examples. I'm more of a show me how it was done before kind of guy. So let me see some examples, and I hit the enter key there with examples. And now you can see what I'm actually getting are some actual examples of what the syntax would look like if I typed it out. So let's go out there and just create a new user now. I'm just going to clear the screen here so we have a clean screen to actually start with. Let's pull this over here in the middle a little bit. And I'm going to say I want to create a new-MSOL user, right? Well, in order to do that, I need to provide some information to it, right? And one of the things that I need to provide is a user principal name, or what will this user's login ID be? So let's just call this ddemo@aeromar.com, right? So ddemo. Then we'll say, you know what? We're going to give you tell you what his first name is, right? The first name, and notice it's word wrapping, and that's okay. You just keep typing. It's one single command. The first name here is going to be Dan, right? We'll put in the switch for his last name. His last name here is going to be Demo, so Dan Demo. And then we need to provide his full name. Oops, and I say full name. It's actually display name. There we go. And his display name will be Dan Demo. And just like that, by hitting the enter key, I have the ability, ooh, there we go. A positional parameter cannot be found that accepts the argument demo. And that usually is an indicator that I failed to put a switch in where it belongs. And I did. Because I have Dan Demo as display name, there's a space in there. That space is actually being read as another option, another element. So I need to actually go through the process instead of removing that space there by putting this in quotes. So I can pull that back up, put Dan in quotes, and now I have the ability to go out there and create a new user with Azure Active Directory PowerShell.